Now let's get started. My name is Leia from Painless Math and I will be your tutor. Today, we will continue to learn multiplication and division of a mixture of positive and negative numbers. But we will be doing something a little more complex. So, if you have not watched the previous video, please watch that video first, as I think it will help you understand the contents of this video very well. Let's start from the key point for this unit. For multiplications of positive and negative numbers, multiplication and division with the same signs will be plus, and multiplication and division with different signs will be minus. We learnt this in the previous video, do you remember? If you have not watched the previous video, please watch that video first, as I think it will help you understand the contents of this video better. Also, there is a very convenient way to quickly determine the sign of the answer, even when the equation contains, like 10 numbers. That is, just count the number of negatives. If the number of negative numbers in an equation is an even number, like 2 negatives, 4 negatives, 6 negatives, etc., the sign of the answer will be positive. If the number of negative numbers is an odd number, like 1 negative, 3 negatives, 5 negatives, etc., the sign of the answer will be negative. Earlier, we learned that a pair of two negative numbers make a positive number. Therefore, if there are an even number of negatives, the answer will always be positive, and if there are an odd number of negatives, the sign of the answer will be negative, because there is a leftover negative that could not be a pair. For example, if there is an equation of -5 times -4 times -3, first you need to count how many minuses are there in the equation. There are 3 minuses in the equation, which is an odd number. Therefore, the sign of the answer will be a negative or minus. On the other hand, if -3 times -4 times -5 times -6 are given, then again you need to count how many minuses are in the equation. In this case, there are 4 minuses, which is an even number. Therefore, the sign of the answer will be a plus or positive. But one thing to keep in mind is that this trick can be used for equations which are connected with only multiplication or division, and cannot be used for addition and subtraction. For example, -4 times -3 times -2 divided by 4. Each numbers are connected only with multiplication and division. Therefore, you can count the number of minuses to determine the sign for the answer. However, for an equation in which the numbers are connected with either addition or subtraction, like -4 -3 -2 plus 4, you cannot use this trick, so be careful. It may seem complicated for a moment, but if you actually practice a few questions, you will understand it right away. Now, let's look at the exercise. If you think that you can answer these questions yourself, feel free to stop this video and try it yourself first. If you are not so sure, then let's continue to look at this together. Let's look at question number 1. -32 divided by -4 times 3. First, let's consider signs and numbers separately. First, the signs. As explained in the key point, let's count the number of negatives. If the number of negative numbers in an equation is an even number, then the sign of the answer will be positive. And if it is an odd number, then the sign will be negative. For this question, the number of negative numbers is 2. Therefore, the sign of the answer will be the plus. Next, let's calculate numbers. 32 divided by 4 times 3. Let's start with 32 divided by 4, which is 8. Then, if you multiply the remaining 3 to this 8, and the answer will be 24. So, the answer is plus 24. Question number 2. How about minus 7 quarters divided by 14 times 6/5? This is a question with fractions and integers being mixed. Moreover, multiplication and division are also mixed. In such a case, follow these steps. Step 1. Convert all numbers to fractions. Step 2. Convert all the divisions to multiplications. This will make the calculation easier. Let's look at the question. In step 1, you first need to convert all the numbers to fractions. So you need to convert 14 to a fraction, to make all the numbers in the form of fractions. Then you get minus 7 quarters divided by 14 over 1 times 6/5. Then, in step 2, convert all the divisions to multiplications. Here, the division part is the divided by 14 over 1. When dividing something by a fraction, in order to convert a division to multiplication, you need to swap the numerator and denominator of the fraction following the division sign. In other words, flip it upside down, and then replace the division sign with the multiplication sign. So you get minus 7 quarters times 1/14 times 6/5. After you have done all this prep, then now you can do the calculation. Let's consider signs and numbers separately. First, the signs. As explained in the key point, let's count the number of negatives. If the number of negative numbers in an equation is an even number, then the sign of the answer will be positive. And if it is an odd number, then the sign will be negative. For this question, the number of negative numbers is 1, which is an odd number. Therefore, the sign of the answer will be the minus. Next is to calculate the numbers. 7 quarters times 1/14 times 6/5. When multiplying fractions, you multiply numerators by numerators and denominators by denominators. But here, in the previous video, I taught you an important trick to make your calculations faster and less error-prone. Do you remember? When multiplying fractions, before multiplying the numerator by the numerator or the denominator by the denominator, if there is something divisible by a common factor, reduce a fraction. Reducing a fraction means simply dividing the numerator and denominator by a common factor, in order to reduce each other's number. This way, when you actually do the calculation, you can do it with smaller numbers, which speeds up the calculation and prevents mistakes. So let's find anything divisible. For 7 quarters times 1/14, for example, 7 in the numerator of the first number, and 14 in the denominator of the latter number, are both divisible by 7. So let's divide them by 7. Then the numerator would be 1, and the denominator would be 2. So the original equation would become 1/4 times 1/2 times 6/5. How do you like it? The numbers are getting smaller, aren't they? Next, let's see what else is divisible. 2, the denominator of the second number, and 6, the numerator of the last number, are both divisible by 2, aren't they? So let's divide them by 2. Then you get 1/4 times 1/1 times 3/5. Since 1/1 is equal to 1, and 1/4 times 3/5 equals 3/20, and the sign was negative, so the answer would be minus 3/20. Question number 3. Minus 3/4 divided by minus 5/8 divided by minus 2. First, the signs. Let's count the number of negatives. The number of negatives are 3, which is an odd number. So the sign for the answer will be negative. Next is numbers. This question is mixed with fractions and integers. Moreover, multiplication and division are also mixed. In such a case, step 1. Convert all the numbers to fractions, which will be minus 3/4 divided by minus 5/8 divided by minus 2/1. Step 2. Convert all the divisions to multiplications. In order to convert the divisions to multiplications, just flip the fraction following the division sign upside down, and then replace the division sign with the multiplication sign. So let's take a look at the question. 3/4 remains the same, and the number behind the division sign will be flipped upside down, and the division sign will be replaced with the multiplication sign. Then you get 3/4 times 8/5 first. And then next, flip 2/1 upside down, and replace the division sign to the multiplication sign. Then you get 3/4 times 8/5 times 1/2. Now, let's calculate this. Remember, before multiplying numerator by numerator or denominator by denominator, if there is something divisible by a common factor, reduce a fraction. So, let's find the ones divisible. For 3/4 times 8/5, 4 in the denominator of the first number, and 8 in the numerator of the latter number, look like divisible by 4, don't they? So let's divide them by 4. Then the denominator would be 1, and the numerator would be 2. So the original equation would become 3/1 times 2/5 times 1/2. Next, let's see what else is divisible. 2 in the numerator of the second number, and 2 in the denominator of the last number, are both divisible by 2. So let's divide them by 2. Then you get 3/1 times 1/5 times 1/1. Since 1/1 is equal to 1, and 3/1 times 1/5 equals 3/5, and the sign was negative, so the answer would be minus 3/5. Question number 4. 0.5 divided by minus 3/5 times 6. This question is mixed with decimals, fractions and integers. It looks a bit complicated at the first glance, but this question is the same as others. If you do it in order, it is not difficult at all. Let's take a look at this. First, the signs. The number of negative numbers is 1, which is an odd number. Therefore, the sign of the answer will be a minus. Next is numbers. Step 1. Convert all the numbers to fractions. 0.5 in fraction is 5/10. Or you can say 1/2. Both are the same. And 6 in fraction is 6/1. So the original equation would be 5/10 divided by 3/5 times 6/1. And step 2. Convert all the divisions to multiplications. In order to convert the divisions to multiplications, just flip the fraction following the division sign upside down, and then replace the division sign with multiplication sign. So, 5/10 remains the same. The number behind the division sign is 3/5. So flip this upside down and replace the division sign to the multiplication sign. Then you get 5/10 times 5/3 times 6/1. Next, before multiplying numerator by numerator or denominator by denominator, if there is something divisible by a common factor, reduce a fraction. So, let's find the ones divisible. First, 5/10 is divisible by 5, so let's divide it by 5. Then, you get 1/2. And next, 3 in the denominator of the second number, and 6 in the numerator of the last number. Look like divisible by 3, don't they? So let's divide them by 3. Then the denominator would be 1, and the numerator would be 2. So the original equation would become 1/2 times 5/1 times 2/1. Furthermore, 2 in the denominator of the first number, and 2 in the numerator of the last number, are divisible by 2. So let's divide them by 2. And then, you get 1/1 times 5/1 times 1/1 which equals 5. Because 1/1 equals 1, and 5/1 equals 5. All good. So, together with the sign, the answer will be -5. Let's do this bonus question. If you multiply -1 for 453 times, what would be the answer? You got it. If you multiply minus for odd number times, the sign would be minus. 453 is an odd number, so the sign of the answer would be minus. And 1 is still 1, no matter how many ones you multiply it by, so the answer is -1. How did you do? Did you get it? So, that's it for today. Again, thank you so much for watching. In the next video, we will introduce the concept of index. Please make sure to watch that video too. Also, if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel for the easiest math tutorials on planet.